Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Sports Fan Network. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Travis.
And well, it looks like this offseason, the Legion of Boom era is officially over in Seattle as the Seahawks have made a flurry of moves to kind of rebuild their team, rebuild their defense. First, to start with Michael Bennet being traded to the Eagles for a fifth-round pick and wide receiver Marcus Johnson. And then they released Richard Sherman, longtime All-Pro cornerback, Pro Bowl cornerback. These are two big moves. And with Cliff Averill and Cam Chancellor potentially having their careers over due to neck injuries, this Seahawks defense looks like it's going to be a lot different going into next season.
Yeah, we'll start with the Michael Bennet trade, him getting traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is a complete surprise considering the Seahawks are trading a lot of core members of their defense. And for the Eagles, I mean, what a win. You're adding a guy like Michael Bennet, a Pro Bowl defensive lineman, to a group that has Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. The rich get richer. The Eagles' defensive line is going to be scary good. Good luck to the other quarterbacks that go up against the Eagles because they're completely loaded in talent on the defensive line. And in return, they got a fifth-round pick. Michael Bennet, he is getting a little bit older, so that's around the area that they'd get a pick. And wide receiver Marcus Johnson, I feel like for a Pro Bowler, they didn't get, a great return.
Yeah, it sounds like the Seahawks kind of had no choice here, though, because Michael Bennett's kind of been, according to some coaches with the Seahawks, been a pain in the ass for them, whether it be his off-the-field stances, and he's just been a big loudmouth in the locker room, it sounds like. Again, we're not into that situation necessarily. We're not there in the locker room, but it sounds like there's been some friction in the locker room with Michael Bennet there, so they decided, with him being 33 years old, with 3 years left on his contract, it was better to get rid of him now and see what they could get for him. I agree, though. The Eagles are getting a great player here. He's still got a lot left in the tank. I believe he had 8.5 sacks last season. So he can definitely, in more of a limited role he will have for the Eagles, he can now focus a little bit more on getting to the quarterback, which is very dangerous for opposing defenses in the NFC. And the fact that the Seahawks were willing to trade him to an NFC contender it's a bit surprising to me. I could see them trading to a team in the AFC or to a lesser team in the NFC, but to trade him to a team that just came off a Super Bowl win, it's a bit surprising for me. It kind of signals to me that the Seahawks are kind of looking to rebuild this team going forward, especially when going on here to Richard Sherman being released. Coming off of 2 Achilles surgeries, it kind of made sense for Richard Sherman, especially since he's going to be 30 years old, had an $11 million cap hit. So that one made sense. He actually just signed with the San Francisco 49ers. So it's big moves going on in the NFC West there. But what do you think about the Richard Sherman release?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's sad seeing Seahawks release Richard Sherman because, he just did so much for that city and for that team. They won a Super Bowl together, and they still have one of the best all-time defenses ever. They just had that run where they were just unstoppable. No defense could compare to them. They completely, blew Peyton Manning out of the water in the Super Bowl, so they'll always have that. But, like you said, it makes sense that they released him. He's coming off an Achilles surgery. He's going to be 30 years old, and he had a high cap hit. But, I was hearing reports that there's a chance that if he didn't sign a big contract in free agency, that they were still possibly looking to bring him back at a cheaper contract. But now that he's going to the 49ers, he's going to be staying, in the division. It'll be interesting to watch him play against his old team.
Yeah, those are going to be some exciting matchups there. But moving on to the Seahawks here, because this is a bit of a transition period now for them. What are the next steps for them as an organization? Because the Legion of Boom is pretty much officially gone, basically. Yeah, Bobby Wagner is still there. Earl Thomas is still back there in the back end of the defense as safety. And it looks like they are going to try and extend Earl Thomas's contract. But what are some of the other moves that the Seahawks can make here as they go into the next era of their football team?
Well, for so long they've been known as having a great secondary, and I think they're transitioning from having a great secondary to a great front seven. Now, they could still sign Sheldon Richardson, who played very well for them last season. I think that would be a smart move for them. Like you said, they got Bobby Wagner, who's one of the best middle linebackers in the game. He's still, very young. He's got a lot of great years of football ahead of them. They could build their defense around him, Sheldon Richardson. And if they can extend Earl Thomas, he could really, fix up a lot of holes in the secondary, having a guy like him floating around in the secondary, making plays in the open field, just being a ball hawk. But I think, through this transition, they're gonna switch to more front seven defense?
Yeah, for me, I think they're going to the opposite here. They've been a defensive-minded team for such a long time. I think with Russell Wilson now being the total center point of this franchise, that they're going to have to do a lot of work to kind of build around him going forward. And for me, that starts with the offensive line. I look at options like Nate Solder, left tackle from the New England Patriots, who they could sign. Maybe he might play right tackle because Dwayne Brown is there right now as their left tackle, who they traded there for last season. But they need to invest in the offensive line big time because they've been one of the cheapest teams in the league in terms of building the offensive line, and it showed over the last few seasons. Russell Wilson's been running for his life, and ever since Marshawn Lynch has retired, they really haven't found a consistent running game because there's just no holes for these running backs to run through. So building the offensive line first and foremost for me is the big thing for the Seahawks organization, and they might have to invest in some weapons as well. There's a lot of wide receivers out there, some really good wide receivers in this draft class. So the time is now, if they want to build around Russell Wilson, the time is now to officially go into that direction. And like you said, Earl Thomas, he's still going to be a good veteran player for them if they can extend his contract. He can fill a lot of holes still in the back end of that secondary. He's still got a lot of years left in my opinion. He was playing at a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level last season. So to me, their defense is going to be good there. I think they can fill a lot of their holes in the draft. But we'll see though, because their drafts have not been as strong as late. They really have had a hard time replacing some of these older players on defense in the draft. So it'll be interesting whether they can do a good job of retooling this team to stay competitive. I think this year might be a bit of a rebuild year for them, though, because, man, they're just losing a lot of talent here. Injuries really took a toll on them last season. I think this year might be the year where they retool everything, maybe miss the playoffs again, and really re-gear up for a run in 2019. I think that might be the most likely scenario here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's going to take some time to fix up the holes in the offense. Like you said, their offensive line, there's a lot of question marks in that. And looking at their guys on the outside, Doug Baldwin, he's a very good weapon for the Seahawks. I think they still need to add a guy across for him to play on the outside. They got a Tyler Lockett in the slot, who's a very good young player. He's kind of like a gadget guy. But I think they still need to add a guy opposite of Doug Baldwin. And, it's interesting seeing what Seahawks are doing. I do think that next season they're probably going to finish even lower than they did last year. They're going to try to rebuild, quickly instead of doing a full-blown rebuild.
Yeah, just look at the NFC West now. You got the Rams who are making moves to be an NFC powerhouse. And then the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo there. It looks like they're in position to take a big leap next season. So there's a lot of competition now in the NFC West. And it'll be interesting to see what the Seahawks do to kind of combat this going forward as they kind of rebuild this team.
Yeah, well, that's the thoughts on, kind of the destruction of one of the best Seahawks defenses, one of the best defenses of all time. Now, let us know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching.
Yep, thanks, guys.